So I wanted to get into the next session, which is, we're talking about, we talked about mental health, now we're kind of going into diabetes, and I'm really excited for this next session because there's a lot of things that are addressing different things, everything from side effects that happen based on the fact that you have diabetes, and then there's also the ongoing monitoring. So I think this will be a really, really interesting session to see how digital health is moving monitoring and treatment forward. So I want to introduce you to Amy O'Connor. She's the Vice President and Editorial Director of Everyday Health. And if you guys want to come on up here, I'll let you all introduce yourselves. But her New Year's resolution is more yoga, less wine. Love that. Again, we'll catch up next year and see how that played out. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. As Jill mentioned, I'm Amy O'Connor with Everyday Health, the leading health and wellness consumer website. And we're here to talk about diabetes, which you probably know is one of the leading causes of death and disability. What you may not know is how hard diabetes is to manage. It's incredibly complex. It's a lifelong condition, whether you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Gestational diabetes can be temporary. And it can lead to painful, sometimes disabling complications that a lot of people don't realize. If you know someone with diabetes, you should ask them sometime about how hard it is to manage their condition. It's very difficult. And the panelists on this stage are committed to helping patients with diabetes live longer, better lives. They're bringing to bear amazing new technology that can potentially help patients better manage their condition, improve their quality of life, and also have better outcomes. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Shai Gozani, President and CEO of NeuroMetrix, Richard Binier, CEO of Vigilant at the far right there, and Steve Pacelli, Executive Vice President, Strategy and Corporate Development for Dexcom. And my first question goes to Richard. And first of all, congratulations. Your device won the CES Innovation Biotech Award this year. And it's called it's a smart diabetes tracker called the B. Can you tell us a little bit about how the B can help diabetes patients manage their condition?
Sure. Thank you, Amy. In our company, we believe that the smartphone should be used to trigger a better management of diabetes. So on the glucose side, we've seen that there are lots of devices that are already wireless and sending data. And our engineers have been focusing on the insulin injection side. And this year at the CES, we won a CES award, Innovation Award on B, which is a smart diabetes tracker, which is sending to your smartphone the insulin injections of the different pens in the market. And this is a new product that we've been developing in 2014. And I have with me a device that is a world premiere to an R&D and in diabetes management, which is the first smart connected insulin pen, rechargeable, that has Bluetooth, and that anytime a patient will be injecting insulin units, these units will fill in a digital logbook in their smartphone. We're presenting this. We presented it 3 days ago at CES Unveiled, and it's a new piece of hardware and invention that will certainly revolutionize the diabetes care.
Thank you. My next question is for Steve. You manufacture a continuous glucose monitor. And I understand that there are some accuracy issues with this category of product. How is the Platinum different?
I think, so we actually, G4 Platinum is our current commercial product. Mm-hmm. We've actually supplemented the G4 Platinum with a new algorithm just recently. I would tell you this is G4, obviously it's our 4th generation system. And there were definitely, the first 3 generations, there were definitely some accuracy challenges. I would tell you with G4 and with particularly what we call the G4 AP or artificial pancreas algorithm, the system has achieved a level of accuracy that we believe is really capable of allowing patients to take really good control of their glucose.
Mm-hmm. And what percent are we talking about accuracy?
So we measure accuracy in our business in what we call MARD, which is a mean absolute relative difference to a laboratory reference measurement. And with our G4 AP algorithm, we're actually down to about 9%. So think of it as kind of a plus or minus 9% to an actual laboratory blood sample. Just to give you a point of comparison, a finger stick meter, which is the vast majority of patients today still monitor their blood sugar with a finger stick. In our clinical trial for the G4 AP algorithm, finger sticks had an MARD of approximately 5.6%. So we're getting to that point where our accuracy is really nearing finger stick accuracy.
That's fantastic. My next question is for Shai, and a lot of people, when they think about diabetes, they think about a disease of endocrinology and lifestyle. They don't think about chronic pain, but your device is actually helping people at the end stage of diabetes or later stage diabetes manage chronic pain. How so?
Well, in fact, some of the most significant issues with diabetes are the long-term complications. And in fact, the reason that one should aggressively monitor and manage your diabetes is to prevent the long-term complications. That being said, only so much can be done. And even if you do tight control, you're still going to develop a variety of complications. The so-called microvascular complications are nerve disease, kidney disease, and eye disease. Will occur over time in the majority of people with both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. We're particularly focused at NeuroMetrix and have been for essentially almost 18 years on the detection and management of nerve-related complications of diabetes. Most recently with Quell, the product that we unveiled here at CES, we're addressing what's called painful diabetic neuropathy. So if all the people that develop nerve disease, which is about half of all people with diabetes, half of those individuals, so 1/4 of all people with diabetes, will develop a very painful chronic nerve condition, which is very, very disruptive to their lives. It, besides being very significant pain, it prevents them from sleeping, which further aggravates their diabetes. It also affects their mood. It tends to cause them to drop out of the workforce and so forth. So it's really hard to manage your condition when you're in so much pain that you can't get off the couch or get out of bed. So our focus is on helping people manage their pain so that they can take advantage of some of these other technologies and get out and sort of reclaim their lives and get their disease under control.
Yeah, reclaiming their lives is really important because one of the things that many people with diabetes are challenged by is taking control of their condition and adherence to medication and compliance with lifestyle changes. How can technology help patients take control and bridge the gap between healthcare providers and patients' day-to-day condition management?
Well, I mean, I can continue.
It's for all the panelists.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I think in all these technologies, and speaking specifically about ours, it's about empowerment.
Right.
I think when the patient has tools that they can control at some level, they become engaged and increasingly own their treatment. I think when they're so disassociated, they lose interest and it becomes more difficult. So I think it's the technologies and digital health integration that engages the patient in their care and in whatever the specific products are. So I think we're all trying to do that in one way or another.
Yeah, I would echo Shai's comments that we really empower these patients. We give them a true visualization of what's going on with their blood sugar levels. So not just type 1s, but especially type 2s. Can actually wear our product even on a periodic basis and see the impact of the types of foods that
get some positive feedback.
Yeah, if you eat 2 pieces of pizza rather than 4 pieces of pizza, or you get up and walk around the block after a meal, watch how quickly your blood sugar excursion can actually drop. They really get some really interactive positive feedback, and we found that they can achieve remarkable results.
Great. Richard?
Yes, I think that there is a lot of medical research and a lot of technology that is helping on the sensors, on measuring both glucose and a lot of intelligence algorithm on the insulin side. I just think that some instruments are missing, some pieces of hardware that should be connected to phones, and then health kit, like innovations like health kit initiatives will help a lot. And I think diabetes, in my opinion, is a little bit in the back still. And that it's a disease that is going to rush into innovation in the next couple of years, in my opinion. And I can feel that now we're able not to get all the data, but some. I mean, insulin injection is one that was missing. All you guys have great data. The phone, in my opinion, in our strategy, the phone will be the one that will actually guide health. There is so much power in the phone. And all the diabetic patients have a phone today. It's just that they have to make their own decision, and they have to be trained, empowered with their own brain without using this tool.
And the B is available directly to consumers, or is it prescribed?
Yes, the B is available. The B is not flowing the data automatically from the injection pen down to the phone, to your digital logbook. The Vigilant new logbook in 2015 will be with a smart insulin pen. Seamlessly, the data will be pushed to the phone, and then you guys push the glucose data, and then we can do a lot. And then we can put our brains, our research, and then we can do really great algorithm together.
I agree. It really is the power of the phone. Our next generation, as I mentioned, we're on Gen 4. Our 5th generation system will actually transmit directly from the body-worn sensor to the smartphone. So I can envision a day where that data is integrated into a single app. Then you can run it through more complex algorithms and really provide plain English, actionable information to the patient on what to do and how to better manage. You really can take the collective of this information.
And I can't help but notice, just reading the diabetes blogs, younger diabetics, type 1s especially, they love the technology, they love to graph their progress. Older diabetics, not so much, am I right? I mean, how do you sell it to them?
Interestingly, we've found the toughest challenge, I'm sure you guys would share this, the toughest challenge tends to be the adolescents. I mean, you can't get teenagers to do anything, much less be compliant with their diabetes. We actually tend to find our older patients tend to be quite compliant because they get to a stage in their life and their disease state, particularly type 1s, where if they don't get their blood sugar under control on a regular basis, they're facing some really significant chronic complications and possibly death. So we find those patients to actually be quite compliant.
There's some interesting data. There's a big change between, say, the 50 to 65 demographic versus the 65 and over. So as we're sitting here today, there is this sense that the older population, particularly the type 2 population, is not maybe as amenable to technology. But in 5 years, that's all going to change, and it's changing as we speak right now. So the fastest smartphone adoption is in that sort of sub-Medicare population. So it's a transient issue, I think. That's largely going to go away very quickly.
About age and smartphones, our experience, because our company had home healthcare companies with nurses helping elderly patients. On the contrary, I think that the elderly patient, when they get their smartphone and they're explained the value they can get out of it, they are super compliant because they understand what you're talking about. It's not a piece of technology. It's really going to guide you, to help you. They are alone with their brain to make very important decisions every day with their health. And suddenly they have kind of a doctor in their pocket. Not really a doctor, but a coach, a nurse, and so on. So they are super compliant. This is our experience.
That's your experience.
All right, sorry.
And can we just talk about the potential for technology to manage costs? Because diabetes is an incredibly expensive condition to manage, and it's expensive for patients, but it's also expensive for taxpayers, since the majority of type 2 especially are taxpayer-funded medical costs. Can you just address the cost issue?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, we all have obviously strong opinions about that. I think to attack costs in the healthcare system, you have to
I should say efficiencies, right?
They go, in a sense, go together. I think you have to take on big problems and big diseases, and so I think all these companies, we're taking on diabetes, and it's wonderful that you have this panel here to talk about diabetes as a target for technology, because in 25, 30 years, 1/3 of the population, if trends continue, is going to have diabetes. And there's no way to contain the cost of that. So I think you have to get at the core issues. So in our case, we very much focus on the fact that pain prevents people from managing their disease. They can't get to the management part when they can't function. So we think about it from that perspective, and it's important to make the technology sufficiently cost effective that people can adopt it so that they can get on to the next step in their management.
I think that's what we're really working to establish continuous glucose monitoring as the most cost-effective / providing at the same time the best outcomes. We know there's going to be a limited pool of dollars available to treat diabetes, and our mission at Dexcom is truly to make continuous glucose monitoring the first and frankly probably the only, when I'm thinking of other tools like insulin pumps and other technologies, from a cost perspective, the dollar spent on CGM would clearly get you the best benefit and the best outcomes.
And how do you work with clinicians, like certified diabetes educators and endocrinologists, to educate their patients on the value of technology?
Well, typically today with the mechanical pen, you have to, a new diabetic patient, you have to spend a week in a hospital explaining them how to make a decision and to monitor their diabetes and so on, and then they are left, they go back home, and then they are alone with making those kind of decisions. In diabetes, the new technologies, the digital technologies that are rushing into the hands of the patients and the doctors today are going to make a revolution in the management, in the diabetes care. We can see it, but the acceleration is going to be now. I think our companies are spending a lot of time, efforts into inventing precision instruments that would, of course, slash costs. But when we work, we're not about cost. We're about the patient. We're about saving lives. We're trying to do a great job on that side and helping them managing their disease. So we are super confident with what we do every day that this will slash costs. So we're not counting dollars now. That means other maybe economists are doing it, but we're not into that. We're just putting our brain into filling a gap between diabetes management and people's brain capability today and awareness, with what a phone and digital technologies and medical technologies can do today. This is our company mission, vision, right, an objective.
And I would say we spend a significant amount of our human resources on training and educating the endocrinologist or the diabetes educator. From a patient's perspective, we've actually spent a fairly significant investment on online tools, even mobile tools. So patients can actually download a Dexcom mobile app and watch the training videos, watch the insertion steps, watch the programming steps directly from their mobile phone. So it's really empowering the patient to do this outside of the purview of the doctor.
I think one of the differences between type 1 and type 2 diabetes is where the patients are taken care of. So type 2 diabetics, 85–90% of them are taken care of in primary care, where the doctor typically has about 15 minutes to manage this incredibly complicated condition. And these patients that may have more than diabetes, they probably have sleep apnea, other issues, cardiovascular disease. So I think that digital health technologies can, if the patients can come informed, if the data can somehow be seamlessly integrated and make that 50, because that 15 minutes isn't going to get any better. In fact, it's probably going to decrease with the Affordable Care Act and so forth. I think it's critical that the data is more available and more efficiently analyzed, so that 15 minutes can be focused on the key issue for that patient at that time. So from our perspective, we don't so much focus on the endocrinologist and the diabetic educator, more on the primary care physician, the podiatrist, the other caregivers that are around the periphery, particularly of type 2 diabetes. And it's very challenging because they don't have a lot of time.
Right. Thank you. What percentage of the diabetes population do your devices and technology address? I think yours is the whole cycle, right?
Yeah, so I would tell you our continuous glucose monitoring certainly has applicability across the spectrum of diabetes, type 1, type 2, and then you can actually look to pre-diabetes. The technology is being used in some clinical settings to actually diagnose diabetes. It's being used in an obesity context, which is somewhat related to type 2, typically related to type 2 diabetes. So different use case. In the type 1 case, those patients need to wear continuous glucose monitoring in real time all the time because their blood sugar is fluctuating wildly and they're taking insulin on a regular basis. The type 2, as I mentioned, particularly type 2s who are not taking insulin, can actually use the technology more on a more periodic basis, more as what we call a behavior modification tool, as I mentioned, to really learn the impact of their diet, their lifestyle, the doctor can actually use the information to help better titrate their oral medications and things like that.
So our core diabetic focus would be on those with painful diabetic neuropathy, which is one quarter of diabetics, and it's both type 1 and type 2. Is really actually the proportions are pretty similar. More broadly, our technology targets chronic pain, and diabetics, they don't just have diabetes. Actually, that's one of the big problems. They have osteoarthritis, and they have back problems, and they have fibromyalgia. In fact, they cross-associate with a lot of chronic pain conditions. So, even though 25% may have painful diabetic neuropathy, many of the other diabetics who don't have painful diabetic neuropathy probably have other chronic pain conditions. We don't know that exact number, but it's still, even in those, in that group, we also believe that it has applicability.
Thank you. Richard?
Excuse me?
Did you want to talk about the population, the diabetic population?
We are on the insulin side. We do digital precision instrument on the insulin side, so any patient that requires insulin is who we focus on at this moment. I'd like to say that with the data that we are going to gather with our technologies, we open the door for personalized medicine with a lot of intelligence, a lot of algorithm and data. We are going to treat the patients in a very, very individual manner. Not us, the doctors, right? But it opened doors for a lot, helping them manage their diabetes and maybe manage much better their diabetes through a personalized approach. We can't do this today. Very, very little. Well, you help a lot with continuous glucose monitoring, but I think it's just the first step. Just the first step, and 3 more years, and we'll sit here talking about really great stuff and great news for the diabetic patients. I'm really convinced.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because it seems like all the prophecies about diabetes are so, apocalyptic. It's like it's just getting worse and worse, and everybody's getting it, and everybody's pre-diabetic now, and by 2050, it's going to be 1 out of 3 people in this room are going to have diabetes. What technology doesn't exist yet that can really make a difference that you think is going to be on the horizon? If you have any thoughts on that. We can't always predict that. I actually think a lot of the technology is here. Is it? Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with this.
Is it about adoption?
It's about adoption. It's about integration. It's about influencing behavior. Diabetes at its core is a behavioral condition.
Yeah.
Type 2, well, yes, I mean management of diabetes, even type 2 diabetes, there's a behavioral aspect, there's a genetic aspect, there's a lot. But the point is to treat it, it's a behavioral disease. People have to engage in their disease. There's no magic pill. I think data integration and making it easier for people to do that is the key. So I think the technologies are largely in place, and obviously they'll improve, but all that integration has to happen. And that sometimes is more challenging than the individual pieces.
And how can that consolidation happen? Because you're gathering so much information about people at every stage of this condition, but where does it go?
Well, that's again the beauty of moving to the smartphone, right?
Yeah.
The smartphone is such an empowering tool for these patients that today, I mean, we gather quite a bit of data today, but it's on an individualized patient basis. Unless the patient chooses to literally they have to plug the device into a computer and upload that data to us. Once they're on a smartphone, that's a network-connected device, their data will automatically be populated. We can run complex analytics on it. We can integrate insulin information either from a pen or from an insulin pump. And then again, it's providing that feedback. One of the biggest compliance challenges that patients have today is they don't know what to do with all this information. They have insulin information, they have glucose information. It's how do you really take the appropriate action? So over time, developing tools to really boil this down and make it as simple as possible for the patient.
And the beauty of the smartphone is that if the technology is there, the brain can be anywhere around the world. So as countries like India, China, Mexico, they are developing a huge number of patients, a huge number of sick patients, and what they have is a phone. Not all of them, but more and more are equipped, etc. So for the first time ever, we are going to be able to help these people in a new manner because of the phone. So we have to invest in the phone connected technologies and the brainware behind, so that we are going to take care of our U.S. patient. Yes, of course, but diabetes is. It's not a U.S. disease. It's a China disease. It's an Indian disease. It's huge millions of numbers everywhere around the world. So I think the phone must be our focus. It's our company strategy is this one: just use the phone so that we can actually help more patients around the world.
And then in terms of insurance providers, how is the reimbursement situation? Are they slow to adopt new technology for their members?
So we've had great reimbursement on the private side since about 2008, 2009. So virtually all of our patients today who have private insurance, speaking specifically again to type 1s, are able to get the device covered. We still do not have Medicare coverage, and that's something we're working on. We've been working back and forth with CMS, and I think we have a relatively established path now. So within the next couple of years, we'll be able to bring our technology to the elderly population as well. So by and large, it's been, reimbursement is not without its challenges, but most patients, particularly type 1 patients who want CGM, are able to obtain it.
So we have a prescription version of our the over-the-counter product that we're unveiling here, and that's reimbursed by Medicare and most commercial insurers. The problem is that there's so much overhead and so much administrative burden in that process that given the price points, the margins are so low for the manufacturer, for the distributors, that it takes innovation out of the equation. There's no innovation premium on the reimbursement side, and it's only going to get worse as competitive bidding hits a lot of these technologies, even more than it's already done to blood glucose meters. So we look at the consumer healthcare markets as not for all cases, but largely a better, more efficient channel to get technology and innovation into the hands of people with diabetes, because the reimbursement models are pretty broken for at least for technologies like ours, largely because most of the cost is going up into the air for administrative processing, claims processing, that doesn't benefit the patient or the company, and definitely doesn't motivate innovation.
Yeah. So Richard, the reimbursement's not an issue in France, or?
So we just won the CES Innovation Award, so this is a next step for us.
Right.
We're going through FDA and expecting our final answer on the B that has an adapter on all the pens. The B itself, as a non-attached to the pen, is already for sale for $69 here in the US, but the one that you can actually put on the pen has required some work with FDA. No problem, pretty smooth and very positive. And of course, our VigiPen is starting its long haul FDA process, but we're very confident about it because we're strong on it. So it's going to be, I hope, in the market in a few months, very fast, as fast as I can. In CE, Mark will have it very soon, so we'll be pushing it throughout the world, but in the US maybe later.
I was going to ask you what innovations you thought you might be talking about next year when we're here again, hopefully talking about diabetes.
That's secret. Maybe we'll sit here next year. And then it's very difficult to answer this question, Amy.
Yeah, for me, it's very straightforward. We will be on our first truly mobile platform. So, knock on wood, FDA issues aside, as long as we are successful at getting the product through the FDA in a timely manner, we should be sitting here and patients would have access on their phone.
Fantastic.
For us, it's further. So we have a therapeutic device, and the reason people put the device on their bodies to gain pain relief. Right. However, we monitor, but the monitoring is to show the individual how the therapy is benefiting them and to further personalize it. So a lot of our innovation will be around further monitoring and the app development and the integration around that. But the core device, I think, is pretty much set right now.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you very much.